Going to keep moving along. Again, thanks for your continuing patience, everyone, including those around this table. Next, we will be hearing from Dan Quandt. Dan is the Vice President of the Amarillo Convention and Visitors Council. We have heard a lot of discussion to this point about convention and visitors activities, facilities in Amarillo, lack of facilities in Amarillo, our ability to compete, and the needs of this community in that regard. And Dan is the expert. And Dan, thank you for being here to discuss that matter.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor, members of the council, and LGC. I thank you first for letting me start now. Another 5 minutes. Chairman was going to charge me as a sponsorship for having our logo out there that long. While I'm doing that, I want to thank Sherman for the padded chairs, because that's been very helpful today. And also Dr. Matney, I have to thank you. But this is the longest I've heard you talk this summer without saying that's an Aqua 1 foul ball. So that just confuses me a bit. One minor thing on background, I'm not from Amarillo. I grew up in Fargo, North Dakota. My start in this business was in 1969 as a bellboy at the Powers Hotel in downtown Fargo. So Chuck, I mean, if you have any positions, I'm ready to do that. I've got the experience. But I've had almost 34 years as a Convention Visitor Bureau Director. I've run them in Grand Forks, North Dakota, Lincoln, Nebraska, South Padre Island, and now for the last almost 3 years here in Amarillo. Now, if I haven't watched enough to see how that works. Famous quotes. This is obviously either the Canadian or English version of it, or British version. When Henry Ford started in saying any customer can have any kind of car he wants as long as it's black, didn't take him long to find out that the customers wanted something else. They wanted some diversity. They wanted something else to happen for that vehicle. We have a wonderful hotel community here in Amarillo. We really do. We have, as has been pointed out, I think basically as many hotel rooms as Arlington, Texas. And what have they got, The Rangers, the Cowboys, and Six Flags. Now, if what we were looking at downtown was a proposal for another black car, I would say, that's fine. That'd be good, but it wasn't going to change our market. It would actually kind of diffuse the market. So we're not looking at a black car, and that's why we want to kind of keep talking about this. The Embassy Suites is going to be a convention center hotel. Now, I know you've heard that many, many times, but I need to emphasize that. It's a convention center hotel. That doesn't just mean that it has proximity to the Civic Center complex. That means it addresses a need for space that we currently do not have in any other hotel in Amarillo. Not one. This is not an addition to the marketplace. This is a change in the market. This is a very critical factor. This is an absolute change in the market itself. Some stats. Now, we have many sources to try to get information on conventions. One of them is called TexMet, which is a Texas meeting event group, and it keeps a database of all the meetings, all of that held in Texas. So we went to it, and we said, please give us a list of conventions, meetings in Texas that need 200 rooms on a peak night and need to be next to a convention center. And this is our answer. We had 1,200 organizations roughly representing over 1,300 meetings. That's just in Texas. That doesn't count nationally and, yes, internationally, things that we can do here. That's a big deal. So there's a market out there that we really can't hit right now. Now, some of the other things, this is hard to see. Some of these stats were in actually the Globe News this past weekend. But this shows that in some of these communities, Amarillo, Abilene, you can see the list there, we kind of dominate in terms of the total number of hotel rooms. We're not even close in terms of the number of conventions. The 300 some in Abilene, you've got 212 in Lubbock, 161 in Waco, and we had 77. Now also look on the right column. It shows the largest hotel in town with at least 10,000 square feet of exhibition or of meeting space. By us, it says none. None. And that's the truth. We have no place that has 10,000 square feet total of meeting space. I'm not talking about what the ballroom is versus the pre-function space versus a breakout. I'm talking total. We do not have one that totals that much. And that's a large part of why we're just not even in the game. Do we host conventions? Yeah, we host 77, but we're really not in the convention game right now. Now, I will tell you that this article was a month ago yesterday in the Globe News. Again, we have a very strong marketplace. If we didn't have a strong hotel community, we wouldn't have 5 other properties being built right now that total another 500 hotel rooms. Okay? We're a good place to do business in the hospitality industry. The main characteristic of our business is we're a tourism market and a corporate staying market. I mean, we get a lot of corporate business. They're not having meetings here, but they're staying here to do business. Okay? And a lot of travelers, obviously I-40 is critical for us. We have, again, the downtown project isn't adding to the tourism market. It isn't. It's adding a new market, a market for conventions and a market for corporate meetings. Not just corporate travelers, but corporate meetings. And I'm going to talk about that a little more in just a second. We can be joining the convention market in a very, very serious way, and we're not there right now. Now, we've talked about some of the contractual things. In the contract that is signed right now between the Local Government Corporation and Newcrest Image, Section 12.9, I know it well. Actually, Dr. Bantney, we even increased that a little bit. We're up to 200 rooms that we can block out of the 225. And the way this is going to work is we can actually have our salespeople out doing a trade show. And somebody says, we want to come there in 2-3 years, we're interested. We're going to need a block of 200 rooms. And we need space at the Civic Center. We can cut the deal now. We can tell them, we can guarantee them the space, because that's part of the contract. We can do that up to 200 rooms. We already have that kind of arrangement with the Civic Center. Now there will be some final arrangements, make sure the rate is right for both places. But the bottom line is we have a sales advantage that no one else in Texas will have. That's going to be great. It's going to be critical, that partnership, as we work with Newcrest Image on that. Now, one of the most critical factors that's been touched on a little bit is actually the 4-Diamond Award, the 4-Diamond rating. I want to make sure you understand that. As it said, we have well over 10,000 hotel properties in Texas. There are 83 that are 4-Diamond. And this is the newest figure for 2015. 83, that's less than 1%. It is a standard unlike almost anything else. The ratings are done anonymously by AAA. They come through. They are looking at all sorts of things. It says, like there, 12 critical factors, measures over 300 guest interaction points. I mean, if your person taking the reservation isn't friendly on the phone, you could lose your 4-Diamond status. I mean, it gets down to the size of the soap that's in the bathroom. I mean, there are all sorts of things like that. But the key is that it's upscale. It's refined. It's got a higher level of quality to receive and maintain that. This city, in one of the most, from my standpoint, one of the most far-reaching concepts a city could come up with, requires whoever has that hotel must have and maintain 4-Diamond status. When we're out in the marketplace and trying to get people to return to Amarillo for conventions, and we say we've got a lot of great places you could be, among them is a 4-Diamond hotel across the street from the convention center. That's going to work. That's going to work pretty well. Let me tell you one other thing about 4-Diamond. I spent over 13 years in Sal Padre. And if you haven't been there, I didn't do my job very well during those 13 years. But it's a nice, very nice beach resort. And I will tell you, not just because I used to be paid to do it, it's the best beach area in Texas. To me, that was a logical place for corporations to come, have sales meetings, have corporate incentive travel, all those things. And so I sent out the sales team. Here are your marching orders. Here is a list of the Fortune 500 companies that are located in Texas. Go to Houston, go to Dallas, call on these people and tell them all the wonderful things we can do for them in South Padre Island. And they called on them, and to a corporation, they said, that's great, we've loved it, we've visited, that'd be great. Tell me your 4- and 5-Diamond hotels. And we had none, and the conversation stopped there because they expect a certain standard for their corporation. We'll be able to do the same thing here. A little short on the beach, but other than that, we can do the same thing here once we have that 4-diamond rating. Now, this isn't going to be new for us. We have been marketing Amarillo conventions for a long time. And again, we have been successful with the 77 like we hosted in just this past year. But now think what happens. If we take the possibility of having this hotel downtown, combine it with a hot breakfast every morning, the proximity, a 2-hour hospitality hour, and these are all Embassy Suites standards. This isn't something I'm making up. This is a standard of the flag. And then the 4-diamond experience itself. That is a massive winning package for us as we're trying to sell Amarillo as a meeting site. This cannot be currently found in Amarillo, and it's very, very rare in Texas. So that's very, very important to us. Plus, we love our ads. We have to go beyond just what this is doing downtown in terms of the hotel. We know this is going to help us with air service. That's been one of the questions. How can you do this? Because our air service is less than some other place. Well, just think back to the list I just showed you. Abilene, for example, has 8 flights a day in, 8 flights out on American Eagle, all from DFW. We have 10 flights going back and forth to Dallas, some to DFW, some to Love. We have flights going to Houston. We have flights going to Las Vegas. We have flights going to Denver. What are the airlines looking for? We've had many meetings with the airport and with other people. What do the airlines want? They want demand. Show me you've got a demand for flights. We'll give you the planes. This is going to be one of the ways we can help increase flights into Amarillo is by helping to create demand for conventions all across the state and especially downtown. Plus, we're only one hop from the rest of the world anyway. We could, bounce through DFW, we could be anywhere and hosting people anywhere. Our current Amarillo hotels, out of the, and we really track about 65 hotels on that. We've got 23 of them that in the past calendar year, the entire calendar year, kept an average annual occupancy of over 70%. A week ago, I just got the new numbers while I was sitting here for last week, but the week before last, the occupancy for Amarillo was at 82.2% for the week. Pretty high. That was up, by the way, 12.2% from the same week the year earlier. And also the revenue for the week was up 20.4% compared to a year ago. There's a demand for Amarillo. We slipped this week, by the way, I just got the stat, like I said, sitting here, we're only up 15.5% compared to a year ago. And as you see from that slide, through the May 2015, our hotel collections right now are up 6.9%, and May itself was up 12.9%. So, I mean, that business, that collection, the interest in Amarillo now is very strong. We just think it's going to be enhanced tremendously by adding this absolutely new market that does nothing to negatively impact our current hotels. It enhances what we're doing. It doesn't change one thing that they're doing right now. We are not changing anything. When we get this opportunity, we're not changing any of our marketing strategies. We promote a lot of tourism. We just actually yesterday appointed one of our staff as the director of tourism to make sure those things are going on. Group tours, the promotion of our attractions, our museums, and everything else that we've got to offer. We still market with all of our hotel partners. Every time we will get a lead on a meeting, we will send it out to all hotels that meet the criteria. We are not creating a special class for one hotel. We are going to take advantage of that new tool in our belt and use it as we can. But all hotels are part of our thing. We're not separating out the rest of the hotel industry to do what we want to do. Oh yeah, and you mentioned this place. As I mentioned to some folks, the main thing I want to do is change what we call it. I mean, I can hardly wait for we get naming rights and do something because I'm tired of calling it the MPEV. It's not. There's no lilt to it. I'm a marketing guy, and MPEV just doesn't have a lot of flavor to it. there's been questions about can we even use the hotel tax for this? Yeah, you can. And it gets very specific. There in Section 12, there used to be in state law, it started out with this is how you can use the money. And it started with 6 possible uses. We're up to 12 now. And this is number 12. Very specifically how you could use it to construct, enlarge, equip, repair, operate, etc., coliseum or multi-use facility. No question about our authority to be able to use hotel tax for this kind of activity. Now, Dr. Metney talked about a lot of possible activities. I've got a lot of them on there. It's hard to read. You know why it's hard to read? Because the list is endless. It just goes on and on, as Dr. Metney showed in all those different varieties of things. And everything he showed you was in an outdoor facility. Is it going to rain sometime? You bet. We hope so. We can always use rain in the panhandle, but we cannot come up with a list that is finite on the kinds of things we can do here. When John mentioned the movie night, that's been one of my dreams from the start. Having that big screen that you were mentioning and just having Amarillo movie night down in the ballpark. I just think it would be fantastic. There's nothing you can do. How do you like to do a family reunion of an athletic family in a ballpark? I mean, it just goes on and on. Just don't limit your imagination. There are many things we can do with this kind of facility. Now, again, like the downtown project, the RFQ that the LGC put out to get someone to operate this facility says they will be a partner with us to market the facility. So we will work very closely with the leaseholder to say, okay, let's do this. Okay, we're off. You know, the team is away. What else can we do right now? The winter's coming up. What can we do in there? We'll work very closely. Baseball is the easy part. Okay? Baseball's the easy part. It's going to be there. They're going to have 50 games a year, 50 plus. But will we work with? We've already been talking to groups like USA Baseball. You know, I'm just using it for their kinds of activities. They don't have to commit yet, and I don't have any specs yet, so I couldn't sell them specifically on what size we have, but they're interested. My favorite, I bring it up all the time, we have been talking about the MPEV with the U.S. Quidditch Association. And if you don't know about Quidditch, neither did I. But if you're a fan of certain kind of movies, I guess it's in there. But we can host that in the MPEV. It's going to be fun. We've talked a lot about Catalyst project. But remember what tourism is. Tourism by itself is a catalyst. When you bring a group to town to have a convention, they may have never been to Amarillo before. And they go downtown, they stay in that hotel, they do that, and all of a sudden they're seeing, oh my gosh, look at all this stuff that's going on here. They walk into our visitor center that's just across the street, and they can see Polidero, they can see the Lake Meredith, they can see all of these things around the area, plus all of the things that are right here for Amarillo to enjoy. They don't have time because they're only there for 2.5 days, and they've got to fly back home and work. But now they want to come back. So then they become a tourism partner. They want to help with that. These are all Catalyst kind of projects. Remember this. It's the visitors that are paying the hotel tax. Okay? It's the visitors. It's not a property. It's the visitors. They're the ones that do it, and we are trying to create some of these things to serve the visitors we have and create more visitors coming in. And plus, all of this has been quoted quite a bit. Roughly 60-some% of all the sales tax coming into Amarillo is paid by visitors. Are all those our tourists? No. We have medical tourism, if you want to talk about it like that, but we have a lot of people that come here for medical services, for example, or to come and buy their car. But they are coming from outside, and the more we can keep more people coming from outside and spending those sales tax dollars as well, the less money that especially the city council here has to worry about coming up with for essential city services. I know right now the visiting public, the money that's generated from the hotel tax, if we could spend it on city services, which you can't, but would pay, for example, for the entire fire department with about $7 million left over. So it generates quite a bit of revenue. We can't read our crystal ball. We don't really know what the future is going to be. But I can tell you, I'm not going to quite say if we build it, they will come. But I will tell you, if we don't build it and try to explore these new marketplaces and these new possibilities for Amarillo, they won't come. It's as simple as that. So I thank you for the time to share a bit with you.
Thank you, Dan. I'd hate to try to tell you no in terms of a possible convention for this city. Questions?
Dan, does tourism suffer negatively if an MPEV is not built downtown? Let me just couch that by saying, if the city partnered with Potter County and you do this expansion to the existing ballpark, does that affect tourism positively or, negatively, vice downtown?
I think the challenge has already been brought up with the current site of Potter County Stadium is the economic impact of the surrounding area. It's hard to develop any other kind of ancillary services to really do that. Using the MPEV as an example, if it's built downtown, you can go across the street if you don't want to get that $100 hot dog somebody mentioned, although Stephanie would love to sell you that one. If you can go across the street, you can stop by a local tavern if you want to be in there for a little bit. You've got services nearby. There are no services nearby. I mean, the challenge I've had for a little over the last year, I go to many, many baseball games. My wife and I love going to those, love going to the Bulls, love going to the Venom. I was leaving Potter County Stadium one night, and I looked around and I said, what business is going to suffer if we close Potter County Stadium that's nearby? And I cannot think of one. Okay, I cannot think of one. Plus, just looking at the layout again right now, although we talk about the land that's there, it's constricted. The Tri-State Fairgrounds has their needs. We've got residential on the one side. We've got light industrial just across 3rd Street. It's not conducive to develop the kind of ancillary services you want to truly make the stadium an economic generator for the community. Bottom line, kind of going back to your original question, from our standpoint, the decisions you make are marketing decisions. You know, if we have this is how we're going to market it. If we don't have it, we're not going to market it. It's pretty basic.
Just so that I can be clear what
Sure.
I'm asking you. So tourism, as you have talked for the last 20 minutes, 10 minutes, has been about downtown.
It just seemed like 20.
Downtown Convention Hotel paired with Civic Center usage. People coming from out of town. Baseball you think that is ultimately local people. So if you now have an MPEV and you put that at Potter County Stadium, I'm just asking about the tourism aspect of it.
I mean, could you? Sure you could. What has the most dynamic impact on the tourism market? It would be having it downtown, having it tied with the other activities. That's without question.
I've got a question. You know, we seem to compare ourselves to Abilene, who did approximately 347 conventions, I guess, last year. And, you know, Nancy Lyles, she's kind of a rock star, and everybody knows it. Okay, and we did 72 at the chart I'm looking at. Mm-hmm. And we've got approximately 110 rooms downtown now with the Marriott. We're going to add another 220. We'll have 330 rooms. And at this chart I'm looking at, it says number of rooms within 1 mile of the Civic Center. We're going to have 330, and we had 72 conventions. Abilene had 347 conventions. Number of rooms within 1 mile of the Civic Center is 0. Mm-hmm. And their flights are obviously a lot worse than ours. I'm just wondering how they're doing it and we're not.
Well, and let me answer the question. You didn't quite ask me, but that's how do we get the people around? How do we get them to where they need to be if they're using the Civic Center? Same challenge Abilene has. If they need to use their convention center and they're that far away, how do they get them there? We already have a mechanism in our budget, and which we will still be using, because not everyone wants to stay at the headquarters hotel. Not everyone wants to stay. It could be an issue of price. It could be an issue of location. It could be an issue of reward points, because they've got a Marriott card and this is a Hilton product. You know, they got to keep those things because they can get a free room. So that's all part. Right now, we bus people, and we pay for it. The closest large hotel we have to this building is now the Wyndham, former Ambassador, and it's about 4 miles away. And we subsidize transportation to try to make that happen. How Abilene does it versus us, I don't know. I don't sit on in their meetings. But that's how we would continue to do it here, because not everyone would want to stay. They would have a room block here. They might have a room block at the Wyndham. They may have a room block anywhere. We would help subsidize paying the fee to get them downtown.
The other thing is we have 50, 55 games a year at the stadium. Mr. Harpole stated several times we need about 200 events a year to make this thing work. And you're saying another 150 other events, and we've kind of seen a list of what other events might be, but those other events, are you expecting them? I mean, I don't know what kind of event, a wedding. I mean, that's 4,500 seats. Each of these other events, do you really think they're going to fill up this ballpark?
Oh, no. No, I don't think we're going to do, we're not going to do 150, 4,500 person
Do you
event.
think this ballpark will ever be full?
Oh, yeah, I think this ballpark over here could be full on Saturday night at 4th of July. You know, the Potter County
Even
Stadium.
after the honeymoon stages wore off?
Yeah. Sure. And it's like Dr. Matney said, too. Part of it is, as fans, we're fickle. I mean, I've always been glad we're not Philadelphia fans because they seem to be bad, too. But we're fickle. We'll go out and showcase a winner. And right now we're roughly about 500, so we're kind of both right now in terms of the Thunderheads. But will we have things at Philly? You bet. And then just add the concert capability, as has been talked about. We will, without question, we will have things inside there that I think will be pushing that 10,000 person mark.
I think Mark can address booking outdoor venues a little more than I can. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, I've worked on more than a couple of those kind of things. We've talked a little bit about weather. We've danced around that. You know, those things are weather related. What happens is you start on the hook. You know, you get rained out, you still got to pay. You have riders on contracts, all that stuff. So outdoor events, especially concerts, it's a tough business. I guess my question on that would be about the operator. And they have the capability of doing that. And what's the history? What have they done in the past? What are the examples?
Actually, that is all part of the request for qualifications that are now being reviewed by the LGC. I don't remember the dates exactly, but they are. It's already in the hands of the city. The purchasing department has been going through to see if the RFQ answered all the questions that was asked and answered properly. Then it will come back to the LGC for their review. So the answers are hiding in that. I haven't seen that, but they're in terms of their background, their history of hosting activities is one of the questions in the
Okay.
RFQ.
But we just have one response, right? That's what we got?
I'm sorry?
Just one response. We just have one.
Correct.
Okay. So
we have alternatives to that one response too. So
we do.
Other things that could be. Yeah, they've been discussed at LGC, and I think they would come out concerning that as time goes along.
Okay, that's good. That's the first I've heard of that. So great.
Well, there's certainly alternatives. So
there are alternatives, all sorts of things on the whole day here, but that's really good.
We will negotiate with the respondent we got, and only if that fails would we move on to consider others, because that's the way the system is mandated to work by statute.
I don't mean to get off topic, but I have a convention center. I assume, and correct me if I'm wrong, just an assumption, that when you try to go and get some conventions, you keep a list of the reasons why people don't come here.
Yeah.
What do you think? What would be the number one reason why people don't bring their conventions to Amarillo?
Well, it used to be, and until we quit keeping track, because we didn't even have the option of a possibility of a convention hotel back then, and they used to keep track of that. The same reason as it might be, for some it might have been distance, it might have been price, it might have been they just decided to go closer to home. I mean, there's a long list of things you could have, but there were so many, and this is before I was here, but there were so many in the older days that said, well, we just want to be near to the convention center. And that wasn't even a possibility, so the office just finally quit even keeping track of it, because why keep track of something you couldn't do? That was the decision.
We don't keep track of that now?
We do now. You bet we do.
Well, and we did when I was on convention visitors as a commissioner. That's one of the ways I changed my mind about all this, because we saw the list, and they said, we can't apply to any of these. That was back in 05, 06. When I was on convention and visitors, and they said, we can't even apply. Jerry Holt was the chairman then doing Dan's job, and they said, look, We just can't even apply. There's just nothing here. We have no hotel within a block of the Civic Center.
Okay,
That goes with the 1,300 I mentioned earlier. That's an example of 1,300 just Texas meetings that we couldn't even consider.
So let's just talk about the ones you did try.
Sure.
And we didn't get. What would be the number one reason?
Most of them don't necessarily say we're not coming to you because it's that we chose to go to Dallas because of some other reason. It wasn't that they're coming back to us and saying this is why we don't want to be in Amarillo.
Okay. Well, what about those? What would be the number one reason why somebody would choose another place?
Sometimes because they want to be, they believe in their mind, for example, in Texas, that they would want to be in the central facility because the legislature's meeting. They want to be near Austin. They want to be near some other kinds of facilities. I mean, we are one. I just came from, as I mentioned, South Padre Island. That's not necessarily next to a population center for either conventions or that. And part of my responsibility in South Padre, I was also responsible for the convention center. So I was the operator. I was Sherman in there. So I understand how to use facilities and outdoor and indoor.
Okay.
But
I'm just trying to get to the answer.
Sometimes it's air service.
Okay.
I mean, a legitimate thing.
I'm just trying to get to the answer of if we have this big project going on, will it help with other things that we're not talking about today? Other things that people have said, we've gone someplace else because of this. We're talking in terms of catalyst projects.
Well, I mean, again, once we started keeping track of it again, easily, number one was we didn't have a convention center hotel next, one that is first next to the convention center. Secondly, for us, we didn't have, specific to Amarillo, we didn't have a hotel that had the kind of meeting space internally, no matter where it was in town.
Okay,
that could handle it there.
Great.
I mean, meeting space is huge. Right now, the biggest collection of meeting space in one of our current hotels is at the Wyndham. Total about 8,500 square feet. The main ballroom is less than 4,000 square feet. I think our largest ballroom in town is a little over 4,000 square feet at the fifth season.
Okay, so I'm just simplifying it, but the top two reasons why we don't get certain events is because we don't have rooms and we don't have a hotel that has space in it.
Exactly.
Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that's very fair to say.
So based on that, would you consider in the contract that I read the contract, and there's a clause in the contract that says there's an expectation that Amarillo markets the meeting space in the hotel. So from what you said, would you consider that to be kind of a conflict in the business model?
No, because we market the meeting space in the other hotels as well.
Okay.
I mean, that is our job to market. Again, I tried to say that, maybe said it very poorly, but given the opportunity of having the Embassy Suites here does not mean we're going to forget everybody else. We need to find out what does the marketplace want, share that with the people that can handle it. If for example, if there was a group coming in that wanted 50 rooms, and a small amount of meeting space, we will share that same lead with everyone, including the Embassy Suites.
Okay, great.
And then whoever gets out. So we still represent all of the hotels. Plus the joy is that we get to represent all of Amarillo.
Dan, I'd like to get a related question. In these conventions that would come to our town, almost all of them would be over the 200 guaranteed rooms. And so that overflow, what would you suggest that overflow that would fill the hotels on I-40 could be?
Well, I mean, again, that's made of a lot of factors, like I said, price, reward points. I can't explain to you how important that is. Some of you are probably silently sitting there going, yeah, no, I know, I got to get my points. And again, it's a hard one to answer because it depends on the size of the convention. But right now, it's not unusual for us right now, given our current configuration of hotels, to have people in 4 to 5 different hotels, and we're trying to bust them all to come in here to use this facility.
This one hotel will not satisfy the needs of conventioneers coming to our town.
Oh, no.
It's to fill the other hotels, too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure. Plus, the other markets are still there. The opposite, I mentioned kind of briefly, like the group tour market. Personally, I don't see the Embassy Suites as a big group tour marketplaces. I think the rates will be too high. We host, those numbers with Abilene are the opposite when we look at group tour. Abilene hosted, I think it was 6 group tours last year that overnighted. We had 298. And that's a perfect example of tourism working along I-40 and working with those hotel partners.
One other thing for me, I know that today is supposed to be about education, so we can learn things that we don't know, and I really appreciate it. I absolutely do. I appreciate everyone's time. Can you list off some of the other things that the city can spend the hotel and occupancy tax on? You mentioned there's a list of 12.
Well, there's a list of 12. Yeah, you're right. Basically, it's all tied into the restriction of how you can do it. The overall rule is it has to be used to promote hotels and the tourism industry. That's the number one rule, first line in that. Beyond that, it does have to do with, yes, you can do it. You can build, for example, sporting facilities. A lot of bills are bracketed in there where you can go back to the legislature and say, well, we have a specific use in Amarillo, in South Padre, in Galveston, or whatever that we want to use it for, and you have to get legislative permission. That's the difference right now, is that the only way we could change how we spend the money and use it again, or in a way that is currently not approved, is to go back to the state legislature and do it again. But it's basically anything that ties in with either promoting tourism or things like this building is. You know, there's money in this building that's hotel tax. So if it's around those kind of facilities that help generate tourism, you can spend it.
I wonder if I could make a clarification to a statement earlier. The 200 nights a year in events, which includes baseball games, that's not required to make the stadium work. That's just what we expect, looking at other stadiums, looking at our market in terms of what we can attract. The stadium and the CSL study indicated, without a full-blown study at the time, this was in 2010 on the multi-purpose part of it, that it could financially work, looking at expenses and revenues. So really the other events is sort of gravy on top of that, so to speak. So it's not required to make it feasible.
Guys, time is at a premium here. But
one quick question with the two-word answer.
Yeah, okay.
How many seats in the Pioneer Amphitheater? Do you know?
Oh, no, I don't. 3 words.
1,700?
Yeah.
How many nights are they rained out a year?
Well, actually, not that many right now, and that's my favorite example of the challenge of an outdoor venue. We've got a place that's been operating for 50 years, depending on outdoors. It's celebrating their 50th year in Palomino Canyon right now. So, if you haven't seen the show, go.
Dan, thank you.
Thank you
very much. Okay, next up. Are you still amongst the living, David? All right. David Hudson, President and CEO of Southwestern Public Service Company and Xcel Energy Company, is here, and we talked about Catalyst. I don't know a better example of what we're talking about when we talk about Catalyst and related activities that come about and we can expect to come about if we make investments in our community. And we all know that Xcel has plans in our community, and David, we're pleased that you're here to talk about them.
All right, thank you very much. As Gary mentioned, I'm David Hudson. I'm the president of Southwestern Public Service Company, or SPS. It is still the same legal entity providing electric energy to 94 cities in the Texas Panhandle, South Plains, and eastern New Mexico. We are a wholly owned subsidiary of Xcel Energy, and a lot of times we go by the brand name of Xcel Energy. I have worked for SPS now 31 and a half years, and all of them have been right downtown of Amarillo. I travel a lot in my business. I have for almost all of those 31 years. And I've always loved coming back home and appreciating Amarillo. I'm actually a native of Lubbock, so I moved 120 miles up the 4 lanes of Amarillo Highway. And I've raised my family here. And ironically, my 2 youngest kids have moved back to Amarillo because they appreciate what Amarillo has to offer. I'm also on the City Parks Board, just for your information. We're a multi-state electric utility. Like I talked about, Texas and New Mexico, we have assets in Oklahoma and Kansas also. And SPS's headquarters, our regional headquarters, are right here in Amarillo. We've actually have been operating in downtown Amarillo since 1925 as SPS and Xcel Energy. And we think that's important, staying in Amarillo, because this is the hub of our business activity for SPS. It's the culture, governmental, and financial heart of the Texas Panhandle. And we think it's important that we are a key part of downtown Amarillo, and that we're a key community partner here in Amarillo. And we really encourage, as part of our strategic call to action, that employees are very engaged in all of the communities that we serve. And you'll see that throughout all the towns. You know, we have over 1,000 employees right here in Amarillo at multiple locations, but 300 of them are just down the street here in the Chase Tower. And by the time we move out into our new building in February and March of 2017, we'll have been in the Chase Tower for 45 years. So we have been committed. We stay where we have. But the fact is we've worn out, and the place needs to be worked on. There's some days when I'm at work, I can complain and joke that I'm only 10 minutes from downtown Amarillo when I'm up in my office. You know, we have been one of the longest tenured residents in downtown. And in downtown, we operate and manage all of our about $3.7 billion of net assets for SPS, including power plants, transmission lines, and distribution. You know, we've got a lot of very technical jobs that we have in downtown. Power plant engineering and construction management. We're constantly having to rejuvenate our power plants. And the EPA is making sure that we're going to be doing a lot more of that in the future. We also do all of our transmission engineering and construction management and project construction management from the downtown offices. We have siding and land rights. We deal with lots of landowners, and it's all managed out of our downtown offices. Substation design and management is here, and actually our current manager or director for all the substations across XL Energy, and there's about 1,300 substations from Minnesota down to here in Colorado. That director is here. That's Alan Bellinghausen, and he's staffed here in Amarillo. We have human resources, purchasing, property accounting. But the real point here is we got a really technical, very technical workforce. And we knew that as our current lease is expiring in March of 2017, about 2.5 years ago when I was working for Riley Hill, we said this is the time for us to really take a hard look of where we're at and where we want to go for SPS in our headquarters in the long run. We've got a lot of challenges for SPS right now. Like I talked about the EPA, we're actually growing at a very fast clip right now. Every day you're hearing something new, whether it's Hillmar cheese and up in Perryton, expansion, lots of expansion going on here in Amarillo, between here and Amarillo and Canyon. But then you get into the Northeast Panhandle with the oil place. Even though oil prices are down, there's still activity going on. And then the Permian Basin that we serve to Southeast New Mexico, it's still booming, and it's one of the most prolific areas. We're doing all the design and engineering for those types of activities right here in Amarillo. So we started looking around 2.5 years ago. Confidentially, we hired a broker, we hired a developer, and they started looking for alternative sites, including out at Points West, looking downtown what we can do. But at the same time, we were aware of the downtown projects that were going on, and that was a big interest to us. And that's because probably one of the biggest challenges we have is in the next 5 years, 25% of our workforce is eligible to retire. We're talking massive changes in workforce, very young new generations, and recruiting people to come to Amarillo and work. And it's getting harder and harder to fill all types of positions, whether it's linemen in Perryton, if it's linemen in Amarillo, Borger, or Hobbs, engineers. It's very tough. It's very competitive now for people. And so we're looking for a new atmosphere in the future that we can recruit and retain employees, especially here in downtown Amarillo. So we looked around, and we found a site confidentially. People started to put 2 to 2 together and figure out who it was and what we were doing. And so we started working on the project. And we thought, you know, our ratepayers pay about $13 million a year in Amarillo for taxes, whether it's property taxes, franchise fees, and stuff like that. So we thought it was appropriate that we ask for a nominal amount of rebates and stuff, because it's all going to go back to the ratepayers. We make no money off of office buildings and leases. It's totally a cost that we include in our rates, dollar for dollar. And so we thought it was appropriate that we try and ask for parts of that to get it back for our customers. Our employees are very excited about the move. Some of them know that they're going to go to the new corporate standard of cubicles, and they're not too happy about that, but they're actually excited about the move to the new building. I talked about our workforce and the younger population. We've heard about it through the studies, but it's something we see too. The younger workers prefer a more urban, dense environment to work and to socialize in, but during lunch or afterwards. It's amazing how many of our employees like to come over here for the lunches on the square. They like that. We need a way to keep people downtown also. At lunchtime, so many people are just heading for their cars and heading out. So we're really focused on recruiting our new workforce and taining our younger workers. We're building a $42 million building. There's a picture of it there. There between 7th and 8th on Buchanan and Pierce. We're moving full speed ahead. You've already seen it. We're already using the AEDC grant money for demolition. It's done. We're not wasting time. We've already started construction. Southwest General Contractors is working on that, and we plan to be moving by March of 17. We're not going to stop. It does concern me though, because a key integral part of this was our whole plan, our strategic plan of building this new building, attracting new workers, was in combination with what we see going on with the downtown redevelopment projects. For instance, the new hotel. I'm planning on using that hotel for larger employee meetings. I'm not planning a massive conference room in my new building. I was going to rent that. We also have a lot of employees, so much so that we fill up the courtyard at times, not just us, but others. We can't find rooms there, so the people are still having to go out of downtown. We're still using a lot of other locations, and we'll surely be using the new one. Another key ingredient was low interest rates. With the very low interest rates that we're seeing right now, the economics couldn't have been better. This was a perfect win-win time for us to make this decision. But it wouldn't have happened, I don't think, with us selecting this site based on the economics of everything if we didn't actually have the other redevelopment going on right now. We're going to continue on with our building. I really would hate to see that we're just going to be looking at dirt lots for years to come. And actually, in working with the LGC, they committed to us that these projects were moving forward. And maybe Mr. Brown can talk some more about that. We're committed. I think if we back out of some of these projects, I think other companies, other businesses are going to think twice and hard about what do they want to do with the city of Amarillo. Another point is we've already been doing a lot of underground work in downtown Amarillo. You've seen it. You can see our conduits are already sticking out of the ground. A lot of that was predicated on us getting revenue out of these future projects. So construction has actually already started on supplying power for the hotel and the parking garage. And so if those don't come through and we can't get those revenues, we will be coming back to the city for the cost of putting in that infrastructure. Personally, I'm talking for myself, I think these projects have been well conceived and developed in a very slow fashion, in a very conservative fashion, to protect the interest of our Amarillo citizens. I just don't want to see Amarillo slip and fall behind. Last week I was in Hobbs, and it's amazing how much public money they are using there on quality of life projects so that they can encourage more workers to live in Hobbs. And that's not an easy thing for Hobbs to do. So there's a lot of towns that we're seeing in the bigger cities that are focusing on quality of life type projects to encourage new workforce as a lot of the workforce is starting to retire. And so, that's our biggest concern with the downtown project specifically is our ability to recruit employees, and that's why we're continuing to move forward. We're not going to stop with that. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer those.
I know there have to be questions. All right. Any questions of Mr. Hudson?
I just thank you for being so forthcoming about why you're building the building there. I've heard many times, without X, we don't get Y. And this is one of the first times that I've heard somebody say, yeah, you're not going to get Y without at least thinking seriously about developing something. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, and I've said this before. I think these projects are just the beginning of a lot of property value increases and tax revenue increases. You can't just look at the ballpark in isolation. There's going to be a lot more in the future. That's my view. We've seen it before. I mean, you can't compare it to Denver, but if you look at Lodo or lower downtown Denver, it used to be a warehouse district, slum area, and they totally rejuvenated it. And I'm sure they're creating a lot more value than the cost of this ballpark. You know, if you think it's just going to be a ballpark that's going to stand on its own, you're not thinking of the big picture in the long run.
You guys are going to have your own parking garage, right? You're not using the.
No, that's right. This building, the first 3.5 floors are actually parking garage. The city will have 110 spaces in it because that was part of the deal for us to get the parking lot that's on that property. But it's going to have 500 spots in it. So this building is actually designed to have up to 500 employees.
Okay, thank you.
So we can grow in that.
Thanks.
Yes, excuse me, say that again. The city is getting how many parking?
The city will have, that's part of the contract, when we took over 1/3 of the lot of that block belonged to the city. Part of our exchange was the city will have, I believe, is it 60 years of rights to 110 parking spots on the first floor. That was part of the exchange. So
those spots are to help with the Sims Municipal Building being finished. That helps with that parking for that building, which is what we would use that open space for now. And now we'll have covered parking rather than an open lot that's pretty rough.
And secondly, you and I spoke at the break. So you're going forward, regardless to whether or not there is, quote, a baseball stadium, correct?
that's right. This building is going forward.
Okay.
I'm just hoping I'm not looking at a bunch of dirt lots, and my employees are not looking at a bunch of dirt lots.
And I agree. I don't think anyone that sits on the current council is opposed to downtown revitalization. At issue is what is the best use of the space that we have and how to go forward with that. But thank you for your candor.
Yeah, I think that's great. I just think we need to come up, if there's going to be a change, it needs to be a superior plan, not no plan.
David, I have a quick question. Did y'all ever seriously consider leaving Amarillo, your operations here, and moving it to Lubbock?
You know, that would be extremely difficult to do because we have 300 employees. But we could have certainly gone between here and Canyon. We could have left the actual town itself, or specifically options on land out at Points West, out on the west side of town.
Yeah, you had mentioned Point West. What drove you from building out there as opposed to building downtown? What was the deciding factor other than the ballpark? Did abatements come into play? Or
I think that was part of it, but it's also that we've been a long-standing downtown resident of Amarillo. Our image is very important to us. We are a creature of public policy. We're regulated by you. We're regulated by 89 other cities in Texas and by the PUC, and we don't want to just, thumb our nose at the city. So that's part of it. But the biggest part of it is the urban environment for our younger employees. I've got 2 kids that love to come downtown as it is right now.
Well, we're certainly glad you picked downtown. Thanks.
Okay, David, thank you very much. I know you guys along the wall are shy, but there are chairs to be had, and you're not going to offend anybody, I promise, if you want to find a chair somewhere in the gallery here. It's good to see so many folks here. Next in line is a gentleman that we have referred to on numerous occasions during the course of the day. And we're very pleased to have with us Mr. Chuck Patel. Chuck is the CFO of a privately owned Texas-based hotel development, construction, and management firm named Newcrest Image. He has made an investment in our community with the Courtyard by Marriott at the Fisk, and we're so pleased that that has happened. And he is also the development partner, as we all know, for the proposed convention center, the Embassy Suites across the street. Chuck Patel. Chuck, thank you for being here.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. A lot of my predecessors have given a lot of facts and statistics, so I will not bore you with all the details, and I'll give you further more facts that relate to me and my company and how we do business. I looked at Amarillo back in 2007. Where should I invest? And just like every other local hotel developer, I picked the interstate. And then I said, it doesn't differentiate me at all from anybody else. I'm a commodity. So one of the local brokers over here in town directed me to downtown to take risk, an unknown risk for a hotel that nobody had ever tried from the local community for the last 20, 30 years. So this morning I was handed a TERS rebate check for the 4th year. And I take this as a reward for taking the risk, preemptive risk being the first one. And my company today is planning to take the same risk for the second time. It's because we believe in downtown. Back in 2013, we had expressed interest to do another hotel. And then I came looking to the local, the powers be, that if I want to grow, what's the option? So I signed up for this downtown hotel. It took us 18, 19, 20 months to get a signed and sealed contract. That was November of 2014. In March of 2015, I received an approval from my lender to move forward with this project, and they approved our financing. At the same time, I was able to gather all my investors, which, by the way, there are several local investors, because I picked my investors, and my investors do not pick me. I picked my lender, and I picked my local lenders, a lot of local lenders, to support my plan. In April of this year, we submitted our preliminary layouts that were passed on to the LGC for their blessing and for their approval. As of today, we are ready to move forward with the hotel project. However, for the last few weeks, this uncertainty has raised a lot of questions. We are being led to believe that the basic assumptions that we had underwritten for the MPEV, the parking garage, and more importantly, the pedestrian-friendly environment that this will create in the downtown market is being challenged, or may be challenged, or is potentially at risk. So we are at the verge of taking this project forward. In 60 days, 90 days, we're ready to move forward. But we need to have some kind of clarity whether we need to or we don't. So far, we don't know if the MPEV is being questioned or not. It is being questioned, but we don't know if it's being ruled out or not. And if it is being ruled out, then we'll have to revisit our underwriting and see where we stand on that project. So these are the facts that we have so far on this project. Other than that, I'm here available for any questions that anybody may have.
I have a question, Mr. Patel.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned some local investors. Who is Panhandle Hotel Development, LP?
It is one of my local investor group.
I'm just curious, under a state filing, when I was looking around, is that group made up of Alan Rhodes and Joe Bob McCart?
They are, yes.
Okay. Who was awarded who did Hilton Worldwide award the contract to? Was it Newcrest Image or was it Panhandle Hotel Development?
Newcrest Image controls the license for the hotel.
Okay, thank you.
I think, thanks for your belief in downtown and being here to talk to us today. I really appreciate it. I think for everyone's sake, it would be great to understand the incentives that are part of the package, whether they're the abatements or what is the package that you're looking at.
The incentives are no different than what we receive at the courtyard. First, we invest, take the risk, and then there's a reward at the back end if we do things right. So the incentives that are presented to us are the taxes that we generate from our own hotel will be rebated back to us over the statute allowed period of time, the state for 10 years and the city for 20 years. And these concessions are, or these rebates are concessions given to us in order to maintain a 4-diamond hotel, in order to build a hotel to the needs of the city and the civic center and the convention center, provide the size of the rooms, the meeting space, the room block, and being the second time the Lone Star in downtown for the hotel project.
Earlier we heard that one of the troubles of having a convention center hotel is that hotel has to discount the rates of the rooms significantly so conventions can come. I think that's what I heard, if that's not right. So is that part of the business plan, is to do that?
That's a supply and demand related issue. You know, if somebody wants to book a convention at the time when we're already full at the property with local business or existing business, then we have to price it high. So it's a supply and demand related question.
Okay. We've been talking, and I see Embassy Suites. It's Embassy Suites. That's the hotel. Is that right? Do you have the franchise for the Embassy Suites?
Yes, we do.
You do have the franchise for it?
We are in process of finalizing the terms, but if somebody else wants to build an Embassy Suites in Amarillo, it's pretty much taken for as far as the brand is concerned.
Okay.
We're negotiating contracts right now.
Okay, great. This is new information about the local investors that I didn't quite know. Since the city is going to be owning the hotel, and the city's the landlord of the hotel, that's my understanding, are your local investors 10%, 50%, 49%?
I have more than 30 investors, and I don't think it's anybody's business for a private investment to ask for investment.
Then I'll ask this question. Out of the investors, and you're right, out of the investors, I think it is our business to know if any decision makers are part of your investors.
I'm the decision maker. I pick my investors, I pick my lenders, I pick the brand. I'm the only person who has negotiated this entire agreement for myself and for the city as it relates to the hotel.
I ask this question because there are a lot of people in the community, there's a level, and this is not to impugn you at all, there's a level of suspicion on some of the decisions that have been made. And I'm just trying to get clarity of this. I don't think that there's anything dirty of anything going on with any decisions. I'm just trying to ask the question. But I hear from you that, one, it's your business, which it is, and two, everything is above board. That's what I'm getting from your answers. I just want to be satisfied with that.
Could you repeat your question one more time, please?
There's a level of distrust in the community. I don't think it is, either it's well-deserved or not, about some of the decisions that have been made. I'm trying to clarify that today by being completely upfront and transparent about the decisions. If people who are making the decisions from the city, they don't have an investment or they don't have a financial obligation to you or in your project. And what I'm hearing from you is that's right. There is nobody involved who's made a decision that it is going to be financially rewarded from your hotel.
Nobody but Newcrest Image.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming, Mr. Patel. Let me first say that it is not the intent of Elisha Demerson, a member of this council, to try to undo any contracts that's already been in place. My issue is for those issues that are still open is to do my due diligence. And so when it was represented to you that as a part of the understanding with regard to your building a hotel downtown, that it would be guaranteed to you a certain number of beds. And that's what your concern is that correct?
Right.
And so whether or not there is a ballpark or something different, as long as there are your beds are filled, that's what your concern is that right?
Yes and no. The guarantee for the beds is for 2 years. That's called a ramp-up risk. Okay. We have underwritten this project on a 5, 10, 15, 20-year basis. And some of the basic assumptions is you have a ballpark, you have a parking garage, there's pedestrian flow. You see new growth in downtown. That growth leads to new projects being built in downtown, just like Xcel Energy's project. They are a very great customer of ours. But I would not benefit directly from we already benefit directly from this project, but I would like to see more projects being built as a result of all these current proposed projects being built, because one leads to the other. I've been in downtown since 2008, and I haven't seen any significant investment aside from the Xcel Energy Center. So all these new projects, they're a domino effect. They build upon each other, they feed upon each other, and it's always the question, who goes in first? And unfortunately for the hotel, we have to have some kind of demand generators out there to support us on the weekends and help with our businesses to take up the size of the hotel that we're being asked to build in downtown.
So I'm trying to understand. So you own the other hotel that's currently here, correct?
Yes.
And I think Mr. Quandt said that you're experiencing somewhere around an 80. What was the? Oh, this was overall. So would you mind sharing what your approximate occupancy rate is? Is that something you could share with us?
I can tell you the market occupancy rate for my peer group.
Okay.
It's 82% and above.
Okay.
Which if you compare that to the national standards,
Yes.
it's national average is around 65%. So
Okay.
82% is Amarillo's percentage. That's
Okay.
just to give you comparisons.
Okay. So it's above the national average then?
Absolutely.
Currently. Okay.
One last question, Mr. Patel. Whether there be a ballpark built across the street from you or some big Cineplex or an outlet mall, for example, you just want bodies down there is what you're looking for.
I want a facility where that facility facilitates more pedestrian traffic, more businesses, more reasons to be downtown on the foot at the ground level,
Yes.
something to create that environment of urban, dense, not empty parking lots or vacant lots.
Okay, thank you.
I've got just a couple of questions, Mr. Patel. As this project went forward, if we had approached you, or this project was only about the hotel and the parking deck, but had not included the stadium at the time, would you still have been interested in this project, or would you have passed on it, or would you have still gone forward with it?
I would have probably passed. It's taken us almost 24 months to do this project here, the second hotel in downtown. And over those last 24 months, our company has built and opened 20-plus hotels in markets like downtown New Orleans, downtown Dallas, Grapevine. There's far more greener pastures out there. And if it was not for a vision, we wouldn't be thinking a second hotel in downtown.
And obviously, as you mentioned in the agreement, there is, after a certain period of time, and the thinking was, I think at the time, that the stadium would be up and running or close to it after that period of time. That if you, that if you did not have a certain room rate or occupancy rate, that the city would compensate you up to $2 million over a certain period of time. But if you had those or exceeded those, that they would not be, part of that. But I guess deep down, you wanted and agreed to do this because you thought, and although it is not in the contract, maybe you wanted it in the contract to give an absolute guarantee that says in the contract, but from the beginning, and instead of having that in the contract, it was this agreement, correct?
Yes, I mean, from the first day, the vision of an MPEV, a parking garage, a hotel, a dense facility over there has been a basic assumption. That those things were not even questioned. We underwrote everything based on a basic assumption that all these things will be there. The guarantees that I asked from the city was just to make sure that the city stays true to its bargain and make sure that things play out in a timely manner where we're not waiting 5-10 years to see the vision being played out.
And if a decision is made not to move forward with the MPEV, would you want to continue with this, or would you rather do something else other than this?
That's a tough question to answer right now, but we have to weigh all the options.
Wait, I thought we were under contract for him to build it. Are you saying you'll breach your contract if we don't build a ballpark? Is that what you're saying?
If the ballpark is not built, or if we're told that the underlying assumptions are not there, then, if the demand generators that we're relying on are not there, then, the $2 million guarantee is, we can burn that up in 6 months. That's not enough. I would prefer to see something being played out, whether it's a few months late, but I would like to see a structure over there that facilitates the vision.
Mr. Patel, you're ready to move ahead if the plan stays as it was agreed and as discussed.
Yes, as the assumptions were made, I'm ready to move forward. In fact, I've given the city a 30, 60-day extension notice so that we can present all our deadline materials to the city and to get a clarification whether we're gonna get a confirmation on moving forward with all these the projects that were to be built by the city and like the MPEV and the parking garage.
Mr. Patel, I think that the risk reward for you is to put up $45 million of money into this, and I would tell you that is a carefully considered from my end, and I appreciate that you're willing to invest that in our city, looking forward with the plan that's been discussed. And I think someone earlier said, unless there's a superior plan. But the fact is the timing and the ability for you to change becomes very, very difficult. I know you approached Mr. Atkinson and I about 2 years ago saying you want to do this hotel when we referred you to the developer. You need to put this plan together, do you not?
We absolutely do, and we've been working diligently on this project. At the same time, we've built 20 other properties. So private equity and private developers, can't wait around for decades to get one project going.
Additional questions? Mr. Patel, just personally and on behalf of our community, thank you for your commitment to the city of Amarillo and the work that you've done and the work that we hope you'll do in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. There's more to hear and more to learn. There has been discussion about the fact that the plans call for some retail space located on the ground level of the parking garage as part of the plan to activate the street. And the LGC has been working with Bob Garrett broker and owner of Coldwell Banker Commercial Realtor and Real Estate, and the administrator of G4D, an Amarillo-based real estate management firm. They are the party that will be moving forward with the retail space side of this equation, and Bob is here to speak to that. Bob, thank you.
Thank you. As stated, I'm Bob Garrett, and I'm the owner of G4D Limited, partner in Coldwell Banker Commercial. I've been in the real estate business in Amarillo for 40 years, and I'm very excited about the possibility that we're seeing here. I'm here today as a developer of the retail space only. And so as we went through the process, the city put out an RFQ, and we, along with a lot of other people, showed up to look at that RFQ and what was going to be put out. I would guess there were 40.
Going to keep moving along. Again, thanks for your continuing patience, everyone, including those around this table. Next, we will be hearing from Dan Quandt. Dan is the Vice President of the Amarillo Convention and Visitors Council. We have heard a lot of discussion to this point about convention and visitors activities, facilities in Amarillo, lack of facilities in Amarillo, our ability to compete, and the needs of this community in that regard. And Dan is the expert. And Dan, thank you for being here to discuss that matter.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor, members of the council, and LGC. I thank you first for letting me start now. Another 5 minutes. Sherman was going to charge me as a sponsorship for having our logo out there that long. While I'm doing that, I want to thank Sherman for the padded chairs, because that's been very helpful today. And also, Dr. Mantney, I have to thank you, but this is the longest I've heard you talk this summer without saying that's an Aqua One foul ball. So that just confuses me a bit. One minor thing on background. I'm not from Amarillo. I grew up in Fargo, North Dakota. My start in this business was in 1969 as a bellboy at the Powers Hotel in downtown Fargo. So Chuck, I mean, if you have any positions, I'm ready to do that. I've got the experience. But I've had almost 34 years as a Convention Visitor Bureau Director. I've run them in Grand Forks, North Dakota, Lincoln, Nebraska, South Padre Island, and now for the last almost 3 years here in Amarillo. Now, if I haven't watched enough to see how that works. Famous quotes. This is obviously either the Canadian or English version of it, or British version. When Henry Ford started in saying any customer can have any kind of car he wants as long as it's black, didn't take him long to find out that the customers wanted something else. They wanted some diversity. They wanted something else to happen for that vehicle. We have a wonderful hotel community here in Amarillo. We really do. We have, as has been pointed out, I think basically as many hotel rooms as Arlington, Texas. And what have they got? The Rangers, the Cowboys, and Six Flags. Now, if what we were looking at downtown was a proposal for another black car, I would say, that's fine. That'd be good, but it wasn't going to change our market. It would actually kind of diffuse the market. So we're not looking at a black car, and that's why we want to kind of keep talking about this. The Embassy Suites is going to be a convention center hotel. Now, I know you've heard that many, many times, but I need to emphasize that. It's a convention center hotel. That doesn't just mean that it has proximity to the Civic Center complex. That means it addresses a need for space that we currently do not have in any other hotel in Amarillo. Not one. This is not an addition to the marketplace. This is a change in the market. This is a very critical factor. This is an absolute change in the market itself. Some stats. Now, we have many sources to try to get information on conventions. One of them is called TexMet, which is a Texas meeting event group, and it keeps a database of all the meetings, all of that held in Texas. So we went to it, and we said, please give us a list of conventions, meetings in Texas that need 200 rooms on a peak night and need to be next to a convention center and This is our answer. We had 1,200 organizations roughly representing over 1,300 meetings. That's just in Texas. That doesn't count nationally and, yes, internationally, things that we can do here. That's a big deal. So there's a market out there that we really can't hit right now. Now, some of the other things, this is hard to see. Some of these stats were in actually the Globe News this past weekend. But this shows that in some of these communities, Amarillo, Abilene, you can see the list there, we kind of dominate in terms of the total number of hotel rooms. We're not even close in terms of the number of conventions. The 300 some in Abilene, you've got 212 in Lubbock, 161 in Waco, and that on, and we had 77. Now also look on the right column. It shows the largest hotel in town with at least 10,000 square feet of exhibition or of meeting space. By us, it says none. None. And that's the truth. We have no place that has 10,000 square feet total of meeting space. I'm not talking about what the ballroom is versus the pre-function space versus a breakout. I'm talking total. We do not have one that totals that much. And that's a large part of why we're just not even in the game. Do we host conventions? Yeah, we host 77, but we're really not in the convention game right now. Now, I will tell you that this article was a month ago yesterday in the Globe News. Again, we have a very strong marketplace. If we didn't have a strong hotel community, we wouldn't have 5 other properties being built right now that total another 500 hotel rooms. Okay? We're a good place to do business in the hospitality industry. The main characteristic of our business is we're a tourism market and a corporate staying market. I mean, we get a lot of corporate business. They're not having meetings here, but they're staying here to do business. Okay? And a lot of travelers, obviously I-40 is critical for us. We have, again, the downtown project isn't adding to the tourism market. It isn't. It's adding a new market, a market for conventions and a market for corporate meetings. Not just corporate travelers, but corporate meetings. And I'm going to talk about that a little more in just a second. We can be joining the convention market in a very, very serious way, and we're not there right now. Now, we've talked about some of the contractual things. In the contract that is signed right now between the Local Government Corporation and Newcrest Image, Section 12.9, I know it well. Actually, Dr. Bantney, we even increased that a little bit. We're up to 200 rooms that we can block out of the 225. And the way this is going to work is we can actually have our salespeople out doing a trade show. And somebody says, we want to come there in 2-3 years, we're interested. We're going to need a block of 200 rooms. And we need space at the Civic Center. We can cut the deal now. We can tell them, we can guarantee them the space because that's part of the contract. We can do that up to 200 rooms. We already have that kind of arrangement with the Civic Center. Now there will be some final arrangements, make sure the rate is right for both places. But the bottom line is we have a sales advantage that no one else in Texas will have. That's going to be great. It's going to be critical, that partnership, as we work with Newcrest Image on that. Now, one of the most critical factors that's been touched on a little bit is actually the 4-Diamond Award, the 4-Diamond rating. I want to make sure you understand that. As it said, we have well over 10,000 hotel properties in Texas. There are 83 that are 4-Diamond. And this is the newest figure for 2015. 83, that's less than 1%. It is a standard unlike almost anything else. The ratings are done anonymously by AAA. They come through. They are looking at all sorts of things. It says, like there, 12 critical factors, measures over 300 guest interaction points. I mean, if your person taking the reservation isn't friendly on the phone, you could lose your 4-Diamond status. I mean, it gets down to the size of the soap that's in the bathroom. I mean, there are all sorts of things like that. But the key is that it's upscale. It's refined. It's got a higher level of quality to receive and maintain that. This city, in one of the most, from my standpoint, one of the most far-reaching concepts a city could come up with, requires whoever has that hotel must have and maintain 4-Diamond status. When we're out in the marketplace and trying to get people to return to Amarillo for conventions, and we say we've got a lot of great places you could be. Among them is a 4-diamond hotel across the street from the convention center. That's going to work. That's going to work pretty well. Let me tell you one other thing about 4-diamond. I spent over 13 years in Sal Padre. And if you haven't been there, I didn't do my job very well during those 13 years. But it's a nice, very nice beach resort. And I will tell you, not just because I used to be paid to do it, it's the best beach area in Texas. To me, that was a logical place for corporations to come, have sales meetings, have corporate incentive travel, all those things. And so I sent out the sales team. Here are your marching orders. Here is a list of the Fortune 500 companies that are located in Texas. Go to Houston, go to Dallas, call on these people and tell them all the wonderful things we can do for them in South Padre Island. And they called on them, and to a corporation, they said, that's great, we've loved it, we visited, that'd be great. Tell me your 4 and 5 diamond hotels. And we had none, and the conversation stopped there because they expect a certain standard for their corporation. We'll be able to do the same thing here. A little short on the beach, but other than that, we can do the same thing here once we have that 4-diamond rating. Now, this isn't going to be new for us. We have been marketing Amarillo conventions for a long time. And again, we have been successful with the 77 like we hosted in just this past year. But now think what happens. If we take the possibility of having this hotel downtown, combine it with a hot breakfast every morning, the proximity, a 2-hour hospitality hour, and these are all Embassy Suites standards. This isn't something I'm making up. This is a standard of the flag. And then the 4-diamond experience itself. That is a massive winning package for us as we're trying to sell Amarillo as a meeting site. This cannot be currently found in Amarillo, and it's very, very rare in Texas. So that's very, very important to us. Plus, we love our ads. We have to go beyond just what this is doing downtown in terms of the hotel. We know this is going to help us with air service. That's been one of the questions. How can you do this? Because our air service is less than some other place. Well, just think back to the list I just showed you. Abilene, for example, has 8 flights a day in, 8 flights out on American Eagle, all from DFW. We have 10 flights going back and forth to Dallas, some to DFW, some to Love. We have flights going to Houston. We have flights going to Las Vegas. We have flights going to Denver. What are the airlines looking for? We've had many meetings with the airport and with other people. What do the airlines want? They want demand. Show me you've got a demand for flights. We'll give you the planes. This is going to be one of the ways we can help increase flights into Amarillo is by helping to create demand for conventions all across the state and especially downtown. Plus, we're only one hop from the rest of the world anyway. We could, bounce through DFW, we could be anywhere and hosting people anywhere. Our current Amarillo hotels, out of the, and we really track about 65 hotels on that. We've got 23 of them that in the past calendar year, the entire calendar year, kept an average annual occupancy of over 70%. A week ago, I just got the new numbers while I was sitting here for last week, but the week before last, the occupancy for Amarillo was at 82.2% for the week. Pretty high. That was up, by the way, 12.2% from the same week the year earlier. And also the revenue for the week was up 20.4%.